What is up, guys? Dzeeff here, and today we are discussing Zoo King Alpha, a reveal out of Phantom Rage. I'm a little bit late to the party here. This card was revealed a couple weeks ago, but I never got around to talking about it, which is a real shame because this card is incredibly powerful. It's on the same level as like Dino Wrestler Pankratops, and it's going to be played in a similar way, and I really wanted to talk about it in today's discussion. Also, before we get too far into the video, I wanted to mention here real quick that there is a remote duel invitational happening tomorrow and Sunday, starting both days at 9 a.m. Pacific time, if I remember correctly. It's going to be a lot of fun. There's a lot of big names in the tournament, and it's going to be really awesome. So make sure to check it out. It'll be on the official Konami YouTube and Twitch channels over the next couple of days. So make sure to check that out. It starts at 9 a.m. Pacific time tomorrow morning. So I hope to see you guys there. So sort of like in a similar way how pankratops is played in a lot of strategies, but is also good in a dedicated dinosaur deck because you can search it out or special summon it. Zoo King Alpha technically is support for Beast, Winged Beast, and Beast Warrior type monsters. However, just like pankratops, it's also generically good, and I think we'll see more people using it just in random decks, more so than just people playing it in dedicated Beast, Winged Beast, or Beast Warrior strategies. Zoo King Alpha is a level 8 Earth Beast monster with 3000 attack and 2500 defense. Cannot be normal summoned or set, must first be special summoned from your hand, while the total attack of all monsters your opponent controls is higher than the total attack of all monsters you control. You can target any number of Beast, Beast Warrior, and or Winged Beast monsters you control. Zoo King Alpha you control cannot attack directly for the rest of this turn. Also return the targeted monsters to the hand, then return the same number of face-up monsters your opponent controls to the hand. You can only use this effect of Zoo King Alpha once per turn. So there's a lot to unpack here. As you can see, yes, if you are playing a deck with Beast, Beast Warrior, or Winged Beast monsters, this card is going to be better, but because this card itself is a Beast monster, it means you don't have to play any of those other types in your deck. You can still use its ability. First off, I do want to mention here, for its summoning condition, you do not have to control any monsters. It's very similar to pankratops. Pankratops says that your opponent has to control more monsters than you, so if you control 0 and they control 1, you can special summon it right from your hand. In the same way, Zoo King Alpha can special summon itself right from your hand if your opponent controls any monster with any attack and you control no monsters. So there are a few ways to use this card. First off, it has 3000 attack, which means I think a lot of people will summon this thing, attack over a monster, and then in main phase 2 bounce it back to the hand. The restriction on the effect of a Zoo King Alpha not being able to attack directly for the rest of the turn is only after you use the ability. So you could even hit them for 3000 and then bounce this card back to your hand in main phase 2. Also keep in mind that while this card does target the Beast and Beast Warrior and Winged Beast monsters that you control, sometimes just itself, it does not target the monsters on your opponent's side of the field that you are bouncing back to the hand or extra deck. That is a huge deal with this card. It does not target your opponent's monsters, which not only means that it gets around targeted protection, which is always good, but also it means your opponent will have to respond to the effect of this card before they know which card you're planning on bouncing back to their hand. One of the biggest selling points of this card, especially compared to pankratops, besides the fact that this one is unlimited and pankratops is limited, is that this card is better over many turns. Because pankratops tributes itself, you can only really get the value that one time without reviving it again, but this thing bounces itself back to the hand, which means you can use it every single turn, especially in slower metagames, which I know right now is not really one of those, but we've had those pretty recently. I mean, even in the past like year or so, some of the bigger combo decks weren't nearly as big, weren't nearly as oppressive as the ones that we're playing against right now. And in those matchups, you might need more grindy cards, which is where this thing really shines. I do like this card in decks that are slower, that do want to play a grind game. It's a consistent, repeatable threat every single turn that can bounce cards back to your opponent's hand. This is obviously really good against extra deck monsters, but it's also just good for getting problematic monsters off the board when you're maybe playing a deck that isn't as good at breaking boards. Of course, there have to be some trade-offs. This thing bounces itself back to the hand, so it's repeatable and it doesn't target. So what's the downside? Well, the downside is that you can only hit monsters instead of all sorts of cards like pankratops, but more importantly, unlike pankratops, this is not a quick effect. That is a pretty big deal, because in many cases the pankratops was summoned and then it attacked over an opponent's monster, and then you could just leave it on the field as a form of interruption. With this card, that's not really possible. I will say there are a couple other interactions where this thing is really good. For example, you can summon it and then attack over something, and then in main phase 2 bounce it back to the hand to bounce an opponent's monster, and then re-summon it if your opponent still controls more attack value than you. That might sound kind of weird, but the only hard once per turn on Zoo King Alpha is the actual bouncing effect. As long as you control less attack than your opponent's monsters, you can keep special summoning this thing over and over again, even if you have multiple copies, which could be good for link summoning or obviously rank 8 monsters in decks that actually play rank 8s. I also want to mention here some of the better decks that actually do play Beast or Beast Warrior or Winged Beast monster cards, because yeah, when you use Zoo King Alpha in one of those decks, it's a lot better because then you're bouncing multiple cards, which is really strong. For example, Zodiacs have seen a little bit of success since getting Trident back to 1 copy per deck, and I think that this is a natural inclusion for that strategy, especially because that deck is sort of lacking in removal going second especially. So I like this card a lot in Zodiacs. I think that deck will get better as time goes on. They do have some pretty powerful combos, obviously not nearly as powerful when they were actually at full power, but they're still pretty decent, and this card is a good inclusion in those side decks. Harpy Ladies obviously are all winged beast monsters, and I think this card is really good in that deck as well. Harpy Ladies actually do have some pretty strong effects, even if the entire deck isn't nearly as powerful as the other decks in modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Things like Harpy's Featherstorm and even Hysteric Sign are all really good in the context of that strategy. Harpy Ladies already have several bouncing abilities, which means that we already know that's good for a Harpy deck, so I would imagine that people would play 3 of this in every single Harpy Lady deck when it's released in the TCG. Another deck that's actually releasing in Phantom Rage is the Tri-Brigade deck, and this one actually has Beast, Beast Warrior, and Winged Beast monsters. Not only is it a good archetype just by itself, but also it supports a lot of decks that play those types. I would imagine that Phantom Rage is going to be a huge boost to all types of decks that play Beast, Beast Warrior, and Winged Beast monsters. You get a new archetype that supports them, you get a new boss monster that supports them going second. Overall, I'm pretty excited for Phantom Rage, especially because I am playing some decks that use those types. For example, Melfi is a deck that I've talked about several times on the channel. I know I haven't posted a deck profile yet, I'm getting to it eventually, but that deck obviously is all beast monsters, and it works really well with Zoo King Alpha, and it's really funny in there too because you actually can special summon the Melfis in your end phase that you bounced back to your hand with the Zoo King Alpha, which is really nice to recover sort of your field presence. I could sit here and list every single Beast, Beast Warrior, and Winged Beast deck, but I'm not going to spend any more time doing that. Please let me know in the comment section below what decks you feel Zoo King Alpha would fit best in. Anyway though, thank you guys so much for watching today's discussion video. Sorry about being a little bit late to the party. This card is really cool, and it was worth talking about even if it's a couple weeks late. I also want to mention once again, make sure to check out the Remote Duel Invitational starting tomorrow at 9 AM Pacific time. It's going to be really cool. Like I said, a lot of big names, and I'm really excited to just play a Yu-Gi-Oh tournament again. It's been so long since I've used physical cards. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'll see you guys later though. Thank you so much for watching today's video. Goodbye.